Daf Yomi, Nedarim Daf Samach Zayin, Nedarim 67. Today's Daf Yomi, we begin the 10th chapter of Maseches Nedarim, which is called the Parak of Nara Hamurasa, the girl, the Nara who is betrothed. So, what's a Nara? We know that there are three stages in the Jewish calendar, in the stages of a girl in the Jewish tradition. There is a Ketana, a minor girl up until the age of 12. There's a Nara from 12 to 12 and a half. And there is a Bogeres, a girl who's above the age of 12. So we know that there's another halacha which we have to know, is that a husband and a father are allowed to annul the vows of their daughter. The father can annul them only on the day that he hears them, and also the husband can only annul them on the day that he hears them. They are mayfair the vow, which means that retroactively the whole vow was canceled. So there are two limitations on what they can annul. They can annul those vows only if they are vows that are inoi nefesh, which the Gemara is going to discuss what's exactly vows of affliction, and also vows that are beino beina, that vows that have to do between the husband and his wife. So we start our Mishnah by saying Nara Morasa Avio Bala Mefir Nedarim, so that the girl her vows can be annulled by her father before she gets married, and by her husband after she gets married. But what about when she's Murasa, i.e., she's in this in-between stage, that there are certain things which are related to her father still, and there are certain things which are related to her husband. So therefore, we're going to say that in Nara Murasa, that she prohibited herself by a vow. So under those circumstances, Avio Ubala Mafir Nedarim, her father and her husband can combine together to annul the vow. And even those vows that she had made prior to Erusin, to the betrothal, and even though that after the Nisuin, the husband cannot annul vows that were made prior to their marriage, the Aros is able to, the fiance is able to, because since he's not doing it with her father, since he's not annulling them with the father, since he's only doing it with the father, he's able to annul the vows that are earlier. So says the Gemara. This says the Mishnah on the top of Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. Heifer Av lo heifer Baal, or heifer Baal lo heifer Av. Let's say the husband, let's say the father annuls it, but not the husband, or the husband annuls it, but not the father. Then it's not annulled. The Ein Sar Chomar Shekim Echamim. Not only is it not annulled under those circumstances where one of the two parties, the father or the husband, did not annul it, but for sure, if one of them was making the vow. In addition, we had said that the father or the husband have the right to annul the vow that day. But let's say one of them not only did not annul it, that was passive, but they actually formally affirm the vow, they were mekayim the vow, then for sure the vow is not annulled. So the Gemara first starts by asking the question. The Gemara asks the following question: why does the Mishnah have to say this law that if the father annuls it and not the husband, or the husband annuls it and not the father? It's not enough. Why does it have to repeat it? Isn't this what the first clause says? It says in the first clause that the father and the husband have to annul the vow together. So why does it have to repeat it? So the Gemara explains, he might have thought, he might have thought it takes either the father or the husband. So Kamashwan, no, it's not either the father or the husband, it's both of them. That's what is being taught. And the Mishnah says we don't even need to say where if one of the two parties was mekayim the vow, for sure it's sufficient. So the Gemara asks, well, if you don't need to say it, why do you actually say it? We just said that if one of them has canceled it with the other, that it has accomplished nothing. Well, if that's the case, if you don't have both of them annulling the vow, it's useless. Why do we need to say, of course, if one of them says, I formally affirm the vow, for sure it's no good. So the Gemara explains, I'll tell you why you need to say it. The reason is, or you can read it, why do we need to even say it? So the Gemara explains, it's true, like, we go in the Hefer Echad Mehen Mekiem Echad So we're talking about a circumstance where one of them rejected the vow and one of them upheld the vow. And then the one who was upheld the vow went back and he was nishal al kamaso, where he went and he tries to go to the chacham to annul that which he had upheld, and therefore he nullified his upholding of the vow. So Ma'alutim, might have said that he already has uprooted that which he upheld, and so therefore he has the ability to go back and to annul his portion and to combine it to the first annulment. And what we need both of them to be annulling it at the same time, meaning to say that there can't be anything that stands in between the annulment of the first one and the annulment of the second one. And so, like a hakama. And so, therefore, if he does a hakama and then he has to annul it and annul the hakama and go back and revoke it again, it's not going to be okay. But if after the annulment of the first one, he upholds the second one, then we're going to say the annulment of the first one has been revoked because it's no longer necessary to combine with the second one. And even though the second one was therefore nullified by doing a she'ilah, nevertheless, since when he did the hakama, the first one wasn't able to join it, therefore it's not going to be acceptable. The Gemara now, the Mishnah says, "V'nar murasa avio bao amafir nedarim." So now the Mishnah goes back to the first line of the Mishnah. What's the source for the idea that the Mishnah states that if there's a girl who's a murasa, she's betrothed, their father and her fiance have to both be annulling the vow together? Menon, what's the source for this idea? So Amar Rabba, Amar Kra, or Rabba, depending on the Girsa, says that the verse states, Vim hayosiela ish undareh, and it says in the pasuk, if she will become married and she will make a vow, Vim hayosiela ish undareh, nikan lanar murasa, from this pasuk of the hayosiela ish, but from the fact that there's a vav, the im hayosiela ish, there's an extra vav. So from here we learn that it's adding on, that the vav is mosif to the previous verse, which is talking about the annulment of the father, where it says, Vimhini avi osa b'yom shamo, so therefore, the annulment of the fiance that's said afterwards means to say, because the annulment of the fiance comes afterwards, because it says, the im b'yom shmo isha yani osa. So we say that the two things go together, but they need to be combined. This teaches us that by this Naram Humrasa, the father and the husband are annulling her vow. So the Gemara says, but how do we know that it's talking about an Arusa? How do we know that it's talking about a person who is betrothed? How do we know that? Maybe this pasuk is talking about a Nesua. It's talking about somebody who's fully married, and it's teaching us that the husband can annul the vows by himself without the father. And maybe it has nothing to do with the annulment of the father that's said in the first topic. The Gemara says, no, if you want to say it's referring to the Nesua, there is another pasuk. What's the pasuk by the Nesua? Because it says by the girl who's fully married, that if she makes the vow while she's in her husband's home, and so therefore, that's talking about Arusa, that the father and the husband annul together the vows. So the Gemara says, so therefore the pasuk of Mayosiya Laish, that's talking about Arusa, because of Mbesi Shanadar is talking about a Nesua. Gemara says, Ema Travail ben Nesua. And maybe both psukim are talking about a girl who's fully married. Trey cry ben Nesua. You say, why do you need the two verses to be talking about a Nesua? To teach you is to teach you that the husband does not have the ability to annul a vow that came prior to the nisuin, but he only has the ability to annul those vows which were made after he married her. And you need, so therefore you need both psukim. And so therefore, since you have both psukim which are needed, how do we know that when it comes to the murasa, the father and the husband annul the vow together? So the Gemara says, why do we need that? We would learn out both of these laws, A, that the husband can annul her vows, and B, that he can't annul the vows that came prior to them being married. We learn out both of these psukim from Vimbesi Shani Nadara. Both of these laws, we learned that the husband can annul her vows, and also that he can't be made for bekodman. And so therefore, we don't need the pasuk. So the Gemara says, we buy a sema. Well, we could answer that, no. Meaning to say that the expression of Havaya ish is implying Kiddushin Masra. That implies not Nesuin, but Kiddushin, because they're still not fully married. That's what's implied by that word of Havaya. So, and furthermore, because it says, furthermore, and the pasuk for this is from Yevamos, where it says in Yevamos Tav Samach, it cites that pasuk, "Va'asher lo haisalish." So we see when it relates to kedushin, we use an expression of avaya to be, or ema av l'chudei mefer, or maybe. So the Gemara asks another question. I have another question, says the Gemara. Maybe what this pasuk means is just that the father by himself can annul the vows of his daughter, even without the fiance. But maybe the father can do it by himself, but the fiance needs the father. Like we learned from the Vav, meaning to say that the fiance needs the husband, but needs the father, but the father can do it by himself. Gemara says, no, if that would be the case, if that would be the case that the father can annul the vows without the aros, then why do we need the pasuk to say that if she makes the vow in her father's home, yani osa, that he can release her? And this is said with respect to a nara that was not betrothed. Why do we need that vow specifically? If we're saying that if we're saying that with respect to a case of an aros where she's just betrothed, the father by himself is able to annul the vow, where there's no betrothal at all. Do we need the pasuk to tell us that he can annul the vows? So for sure, we're saying that the father by himself cannot annul the vows when he's without the aris. He has to do it only with the fiance. So therefore, the pasuk has to teach us by a nara penuya, by a nara who's not married, that the father can annul the vows by himself. So the Gemara says, "Ema av we buy aros." The aros l'chudei mefer. So maybe it's the opposite. We'll try from the opposite approach. Maybe the father himself can require the fiance to annul the vows when they're betrothed, but the fiance by himself could do it without the father. Well, if that's the case, why does the Torah write the law of a father by a betrothal, where we learn now from the pasuk Vim Hayosiyah that it's adding on Lamali? Why do we need him at all? His annulment doesn't help or hurt. So we would say, maybe it's to teach us that if the father upholds the vow, it's valid, even though he needs the fiance to reject the vow, but maybe if he upholds it, it's valid. Mar says, no, no, if that's the case, that the fiance can annul the vow of the father by himself, annul the vow of his bride by himself without the father, then Beisi Shanadara Lamai Kasav. Then why do we need the pasuk to tell us that if he's fully married to her, he can annul the vow? We say if when she's fully married, even when she's only partially married to the father, he's able to annul it. When the father's not there at all, for sure he should be able to annul it by himself. Meaning, say if he's able to annul it when she's not even fully married to him, that the father's still in the picture, then for sure when he's by himself, he should be able to know it. So we wouldn't have needed that pasuk in Beisi Shanadara. So the Gemara explains, Ema and Beisi Shanadara is to teach us She'ena Bal Meifar B'Kodim. Maybe it's to teach us this idea that the husband can't annul the vows of Komin prior to their marriage. Umine Meifar B'Nedarim. So the Gemara says, Umine aros meifar b'kodmin. So if that's the case, we should learn out from this. If we're saying that the husband can't be meifar by kodmin, that should teach us that the aros himself could be meifar by kodmin. The nesuin can't be meifar by kodmin, the fulling one, but the aros can. Ela mishum shutafuse da'av. So the whole reason, why the aris could be made for Bekomin is because he's doing it only with the shutfus, with the partnership of the father. So, okay, we'll stop here. God willing, we'll review this on Shabbos.